prior to that, I had been in Walt Disney World with Dave and his family, my family and his family, because Dave at that point purported to know. I knew nothing about Disney World, and he purported to know everything. So, in a very tongue-in-cheek way. So, Disney, through Hyperion, going back to the beginning of the interview, Disney, through Hyperion, surprised us. And when we got there, they had paid for all our hotel rooms. They had given us all the passes to the park. They gave us guides every day, so we jumped the lines. We were VIPs. The week before, the guide had toured John Travolta. So, it was like Dave and I are going, wait, we are not John Travolta. How are we getting this treatment? And we had gotten this treatment from a woman named Wendy Lefcon. And I called Wendy Lefcon to thank her for this just unbelievable 3-day weekend. And we got talking, and she said, she knew it was my first time in the parks. And she said, what impressed you most? And I said, it's that these rides have a beginning, middle, and end. Every single ride tells a story. And she said, a lot of people never see that. And there are these guys called Imagineers. And she started explaining the whole thing to me. And then she said, we have been trying to find an author who could write a thriller inside our parks that our attorneys would approve. We want a suspense novel, but nothing bad can happen. No weapons can be involved, no sabotage. The kids can't get hurt, but we would love it. Would you be interested in writing that? And I said, well, I'll try, because I love a big challenge like Diary of Ellen Rimbauer. And so I found myself in a situation of sending, I think I sent 5 or 6 different outlines to them. The attorneys turned down the first 5. And then through a stroke of luck, I saw a hologram that didn't require being plugged in. It's a daylight hologram, and you can get them on the internet. I saw one of these at this symposium, and I said, my God, that's the answer. The kids are holograms. Nothing bad can happen to them if they're light. Everybody will see them as real. I don't know if you've ever seen a real hologram, but they do not look like movies represent them. Movies sort of make them ghosty. They look absolutely real. They look as an apple looks like an apple. It doesn't look like a fuzzy apple or a transplant. It looks like a freaking apple. And then you can run your finger through it and you go, oh my gosh. So I pitched that, and the attorneys approved it and the editorial approved it. And I wrote the first book, and it did modestly well. And then it started, like a year after it had been published, it started picking up steam and picking up more steam. And they put it in paperback, and it picked up more. And they came back and said, would you be interested in writing 3 more? And I said, sure. So over the next 3 years, I wrote 3 more, and it gained more and more speed. And then we realized we had 2 million readers and still climbing. And so I'm right now writing the final Kingdom Keepers, which is the 13th book. And I was working on it this morning. So that series has gone on now for 18, 19 years, something like that. If you can't inhabit a child in your head, you shouldn't try to write this stuff. The only difference really in the books, I do not write down at all to my readers, because when I read, I was forced to look up words. If I didn't understand a word, I had to look it up. And I think that's how you grow as readers. So what you do is, in the children's books, you don't use cuss words. You don't have intimate relationships, but you still have the same stakes. You still have the challenge of writing very good character arcs. So a young boy might start afraid of swimming, and by the end, he has to dive into the water to save somebody. You need these arcs for the reader to feel that character growth, loss, win. It doesn't matter, but you've got to move the character. The character can't just move through a scene. The character has to move through learned, lost, won, fought, given in, capitulation, whatever it is. And that makes the reader go, wow. Like, I still get emails about the Kingdom Keepers, and I get, literally, this sounds completely crazy, but I get emails from kids who say, what's Finn doing today? And to the kids, these characters are alive, and I know them as my friends. And that means I've done my job well because they're living with these characters. And that's what you need to do. It's not so much the plotting or any of that. You've just, if you've had kids, that was my blessing, is I had kids and watched them fail and win and fumble and stumble and exceed and excel. And it triggered all the stuff in my life where I fumbled and stumbled and exceeded and failed. And I wanted to write about that stuff. Once I had written about opening day in Disneyland, and Disney still wanted more books, and my insisting I don't repeat myself, I I went to Wendy Lefcon really based on some emails I'd gotten from some of my readers, and I said, "Hey, how about the next series is the sons and daughters of the Kingdom Keepers?" And she just went, "Oh my gosh, what a fun idea!" So these three books, Inheritance, are the sons and daughters of the original Kingdom Keepers, and the Kingdom Keepers are in it as well. And it's an homage to Walt Disney's dream, which was to have a whole town built around Epcot. He envisioned a village of the future of 40,000 people in those acres around Epcot. So that's what happens in my book. We're in 2040. Epcot has been built out. There's 40,000 people living around it. And the son of Finn Whitman, who's sort of the lead Kingdom Keepers, Finn has Mickey's wand mounted on their fireplace, their faux fireplace, because it's Florida, their faux fireplace wall. And he's challenged by a bully to use it in this video game they're playing around with. And Finn makes the mistake of, being bullied into doing something. And when he waves that wand, it cuts a shimmer, which is an homage to Philip. Oh my God, I'm just such a blank today. Sorry. Philip Pullman, and the knife he uses in the Golden Compass series. Similarly, Finn, draws this line and causes this rent in reality and steps through, and he realizes that each of the towns, each of the countries in the World Showcase in Epcot can be, with this wand, a portal to a park in another world, in another country. And so the kids world jump and get into all sorts of trouble. And I'm just finishing up the third book of that. I'm writing this sort of standalone thriller. It'll probably take me a couple of years to write it. It's slow. And I've signed an 8-book deal with Disney. I have a series of 6 books that are going to be written for maybe second, third, and fourth grade. And it's a really fun conceit that takes place inside the parks. They're shorter, but that doesn't make them any less difficult to write, as I found quickly. And so I have my hands full there probably for a couple of years, actually. The Magical Map. In this case, it's all the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland. Yeah, it's there's a map at the back of a journal, and strange things happen, and these very young kids find themselves in odd situations. I grew up with Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and I love. For instance, one of my favorite things to watch or read still is Harry Potter. I just love it. I love Kids in Jeopardy. It's it there's a sophistication there that you do without all the traps of swear words and sex complications and things that just in your adult books you've got to deal with. In kids books you don't need to deal with that. You need to deal with, can I put up with this jerk bully, and is that girl ever going to like me, and how the heck do I start this darn lawnmower? It's simpler. The world is simpler, and as a writer, it's really fun to write that. It's more innocent, like you mentioned. It's not less threatening. The stakes are still enormous, but there's just something magical to me about the discovery of life and adulthood and what it all means.